So I want to talk about why this could be Juju Smith-Schuster's last year playing as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Now, according to a report by The Athletic, the Pittsburgh Steelers are, quote, quote, not likely to bring back Juju Smith-Schuster after the 2020 season. Now, my guy NMD TV sent me this article, and I had no idea that Juju Smith-Schuster's contract was going to be up after this year. Like, I had no idea. I still thought that he had a year left of being the Pittsburgh Steelers. So after this season, he could be a free agent if Pittsburgh doesn't look to re-sign him. Now, the report is that the Steelers are not likely to re-sign him. Now, it makes sense because, Juju Smith-Schuster didn't really have that good of a season last year. He failed to live up to the expectations that a lot of people thought that he could end up being the number one wide receiver with the Steelers getting rid of Antonio Brown, and things didn't work out that way. He only had 552 receiving yards, he had 42 receptions, and 3 touchdowns, and he really struggled. He struggled to create separation. He also had a couple of drops as well. So, I could see the Steelers letting Juju walk, right, if he once again has a disappointing season this year. But if Juju breaks out, if Juju has a bounce-back season, it still may be hard to see the Steelers bringing him back. And here's why. Big Ben is set to have a $41 million cap hit this upcoming season. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster isn't the only guy that the Steelers have to worry about bringing back. You still got Cam Hayward. You still got to get Bud Dupree locked up to a long-term deal. You got to re-sign Mike Hilton. And then not only are you worried about the upcoming free agents for this upcoming free agency after the 2020 NFL season, but you also got to make sure that you re-sign T.J. Watt, who is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. So if you're Pittsburgh, this just isn't a short-term thing. This is a long-term thing because they have to focus on other players. So the question is, how much money is Juju Smith-Schuster going to demand after this year? Because let's say, hypothetically, Juju Smith-Schuster bounces back in 2020. Let's say he has 400 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns with 80 receptions. So let's say he bounces back. So the question is, what would the market be for Juju Smith-Schuster? How much will he be asking for? Will he be asking for Amari Cooper type money? Or will he be somewhere in the $60 million price range? That's the question. Now, for those of you guys who say that Juju Smith-Schuster will be a Steeler without a doubt because we have one of the best general managers in the NFL and Kevin Colbert, who is able to make things work and he can shift some salaries around and create some cap space to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster, I still want to say I wouldn't count on that. Because just because Juju Smith-Schuster has came out and said that he loves being a Pittsburgh Steeler and he wants to be a Steeler for the rest of his career possibly, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because look, Le'Veon Bell said the same thing, and we saw how that ended up. And a smart guy once told me that everybody's your friend or everybody's friendly until money is involved. So Juju Smith-Schuster could want to be a Steeler all he wants to for the rest of his career until those contract talks pop up and he doesn't get the salary that he wants and he ends up walking away. So just because Juju loves being a Steeler and things like that doesn't mean he won't walk away if he doesn't get what he wants. So you also got to worry about bringing back guys like Hayward, Bud Dupree, Mike Hilton, maybe Joe Hayden. So it's other guys that you have to worry about. So the question is, how much does Pittsburgh value Juju Smith-Schuster? That's going to come down to it. Do the Steelers think that Juju Smith-Schuster is more valuable to the team than Cam Hayward, Dupree, or Mike Hilton? Right? Now, me personally, I think that it is a realistic possibility that Juju does walk away. Right? I think we actually have a low chance of keeping Juju Smith-Schuster because if we go back in the past, when it comes down to bringing back wide receivers, Pittsburgh doesn't really have a good track record of re-signing wide receivers. Other than Antonio Brown and Hines Ward, basically we've seen guys like Santonio Holmes, Emmanuel Sanders, and Mike Wallace all end up walking away from the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. So, I mean, Pittsburgh has great depth at the wide receiver position. For Pittsburgh, a wide receiver can walk away and it's basically next man up. Because one of the few questions that you can always never have when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a year-to-year basis is how good the receiving core is going to be. Because at the start of the season, it may be question marks at other positions on the Steelers roster, but I promise you that the wide receiver position will be the least of the concern because Pittsburgh always has so much production there. And then you look at guys like Deontay Johnson, James Washington, who really had nice 2019 seasons. Then you bring in Chase Claypool and this past year's NFL draft. You got a lot of guys on the roster who could end up taking Juju Smith-Schuster's place if he does walk away. So Pittsburgh doesn't have to bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster isn't a must-have compared to the other positions that Pittsburgh needs to address, like bringing back Cam Hayward, who's one of the best defensive ends in the NFL. You get what I'm saying? So I think that Pittsburgh realistically has a very low shot of keeping Juju Smith-Schuster after the 2020 NFL season unless they franchise tag him, right? But then you still might not have enough cap space to re-sign the guys that you have to bring in. And based on what the Steelers have did in the past when it comes to keeping wide receivers, other than guys like Brown and Hines Ward, they've let a lot of young, talented wide receivers walk away because they trust their coaching staff and they trust their ability to develop wide receivers. So I'm looking at Juju Smith-Schuster at, it depends on what his asking price is. Because listen, we're under the assumption that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to come back in 2020 better than what he was in 2019. A lot of people forget that Juju Smith-Schuster had to play with two backup quarterbacks. He had to play in Mason Rudolph and Doug Hodges. And Pittsburgh really struggled to move the ball up and down the field due to the incompetence that we had at the quarterback position. So Ben Roethlisberger coming back, Juju should most definitely bounce back. But when he does bounce back, what is his asking price going to be? Is he going to be like in some Amari Cooper kind of deal when he wants like $95 million or something crazy like that? Or is he going to ask for something reasonable? Is he going to be like, I only want 60 to 50 million, right? Or does Pittsburgh go the short-term route and franchise tag him and try to get a long-term deal worked out? Now, something that does work in Pittsburgh's favor is the fact that the salary cap is supposed to increase. So with the salary cap increasing, Pittsburgh should have a little bit more flexibility. But even then, we still can't be assured that Juju Smith-Schuster will come back a Pittsburgh Steeler. And just because Juju loves being a Steeler and things like that, like I said earlier in this video, doesn't mean a doggone thing. Le'Veon Bell said he wanted to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for the rest of his career, and we saw how that unfolded, right? So, I mean, it's really, I think personally, even though I love Juju Smith-Schuster, Juju is one of my favorite Steelers of all time. I think that it is a realistic possibility, and the Steelers have a low chance of bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster after the 2020 NFL season. That's just how I see it. Unless Pittsburgh franchise tags him, that's the only way I see him coming back. Because listen, I love Juju, but at the wide receiver position, Pittsburgh has always been pretty solid in replacing guys, right? We still need to bring back Hayward. We still need to bring back Bud Dupree and Mike Hilton. And I think making sure that we keep a top defense in the NFL would be a little bit more of a priority versus trying to keep Juju Smith-Schuster. Because you don't need to have an elite wide receiver to win games in the playoffs and to make a Super Bowl run. So, I mean, listen, I love Juju Smith-Schuster and all, but I think it is a realistic possibility that he does end up walking away from Pittsburgh and ends up on a new team next year after this season. Because look, Pittsburgh just doesn't have the cap space unless Colbert can somehow pull a rabbit out of his butt and can somehow restructure or force Big Ben to restructure his contract so Pittsburgh has some more cap space to bring back or offer a pretty reasonable salary to guys like Bud Dupree and guys like Cam Hayward and Juju Smith-Schuster. But, I mean, I'm really not counting on it. We don't know if Ben Roethlisberger is going to be willing to take that kind of restructure. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section about this. Do you guys think the Pittsburgh Steelers will be able to keep Juju Smith-Schuster after the 2020 NFL season? Or do you think he will end up walking away and joining another team? Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, and like the video. Upload NFL videos, college football videos daily. And also, in that link down below, make sure that you guys go ahead, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to my podcast, which is down there. When you scroll down, you should see Apple Podcasts. You go there, you click that little button on the right, and it's going to take you to the podcast. And make sure that you guys check out a couple of episodes that I have up there, and make sure you guys go ahead and leave a 5-star review. And thanks for watching.